Have you ever gone through an unwell period of your life and unsuccessfully found the core of what had been happening? Do you know anyone, or is there anyone in your life who suffers with chronic pain from one thing to the next thing, and the next symptom to the next pain and illness? And no matter where they go, no matter what doctor or medical profession or alternative healer or any kind of and nothing, nobody has the answer. If so, this is the episode for you. So, hello everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to have a very special guest on the show today. This guest is actually a gorgeous friend of mine, all the way back from Ireland, which makes me so overly grateful for her to be on the show. I'm really excited for you to hear her inspirational journey and story about how she got to where she is right now. This beautiful soul has so much wisdom to share. So let me introduce you to the stunning Aoife McCormack. Hello.
Hey, Sarah, it's so nice to see you and spend time with you in this way. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm, yeah.
yes.
So, yeah. Will I introduce myself a little further
Yes,
or?
please do. Yes, I was going to say it's absolutely amazing to have you on the show. And tell us your story because it's obviously better coming from you.
So I am now I'm a mind body coach. So I teach women self-healing tools, mind body tools, so that they can reclaim their lives from chronic pain, chronic illness, anxiety, and depression.
Mhm.
Because the reason I'm in this privileged position to be able to teach this process is because I lived for decades with unexplained, chronic, debilitating illness, diagnosis, chronic pain syndromes, IBS, and food intolerances. The list goes on. Anxiety,
Yeah.
depression, panic. And nothing was working for me for so long. I was in an extremely dark place.
Hmm.
So the tools that I teach are what worked for me in the end when I found this mind-body connection that I'll
Hmm.
share more about, obviously. And that's when I had a big breakthrough. I think it was 2019,
Wow.
and things started to change for me. So yeah.
What was it? What was that actual breakthrough that kind of made you realize, oh, this is what it is?
Yeah. So, well, when I was a kid, sorry, when I was a kid, I suffered with lots of symptoms. One of those symptoms was stomach pains. I would complain of stomach aches and pains.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had like yeast infections and low immune system, and I would get pains in my body, and I would also get reoccurring fevers. So my parents took me to doctors and consultants, and my parents are super open as well. So they took me to healers and
Mm-hmm.
homeopaths and all different like, wonderful modalities for healing. But of course, the main symptom at the time was really like this stomach pain. So um very early on, the whole idea of food, hypervigilance on food
Mm-hmm.
came up, and it was like, okay, what goes in your stomach? Food goes in your stomach. You've got a stomach pain, so let's blame the food. And that made sense. And there's lots of science to back that up. So early on, it was like, get her off sugar, get her off gluten, get her off dairy. She's full of yeast. And so, my parents did these things, but they were relaxed about it because they didn't want me to be too um, restricted.
Mm-hmm.
So then years later, the doctors, they said like she'll grow out of it, ignore it. we don't know what this is. I was diagnosed as by the top pediatrician in Ireland as mystery girl.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like doing all these tests. I got my whole body x-rayed because I had this chronic pain in my body, and I got
Mm-hmm.
my stomach x-rayed and tubes and everything. And
Wow.
so then, nothing really changed. But when I was in my mid 20s, then, I had been like partying loads, and I kind of attributed then like my stomach issues that I still had,
Mm-hmm.
stomach pain, like severe like cramping and aches and pains and depression, to the fact that I was like not living this an optimal lifestyle, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I'm like 25 or whatever. I'm like, I'm going to turn my life around, and I'm going to revisit this whole world. So I did the same thing my parents did. I went to doctors, consultants, and healers, and a kinesiologist then, told me it's yeast, a candida, go off all this food. So I took it really, seriously. I wanted to feel better. And I did like all these restrictive diets with the idea that like I would get strong enough to reintroduce them, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But 6 years later, after me turning my life around when I was 25, I was not better at all. I was terrified of food. I lived in constant fear of a flare up. I had more diagnoses. I had fibromyalgia, bladder syndrome, carpal tunnel syndrome. Um, I had just so many different uh, diagnoses, and the IBS and the severe symptoms and the depression and the panic and the anxiety. And it was just a complete nightmare. Like no one in 30 years was able to give me a clear explanation of why I had these symptoms. It took years, it took decades to even get a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And even when I got that diagnosis, I was like, I thought a diagnosis would help me to find a clear explanation and a route to a path to recovery, but it didn't at all. It just left me more clueless. So
Yeah.
I was just in a bad place, and I was left, I was just left like to guess what was happening. And the most obvious thing that I could think of, and that kept being reflected to me, was the food and the diet, and live this, juice fasting and colon cleanses and detoxing and organic food, and don't eat it this time and eat it that time. And it was the only thing I could really cling on to, and cleanse myself of viruses and bacteria and all these things, right? But it left me, I wasn't better off. I wasn't clear of any of these symptoms or diagnosis. And I was living in an extremely difficult way, that I was terrified of food and terrified of a flare up, and I had to manage my whole circumstances. And I was like 30, and I hadn't, I was just not living life, but I was trying so hard, and I was going, I was doing therapy, all different kinds of therapy. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a Tibetan meditation practice for a long time, a committed practice. And I was like, just seemed like I was doing all the right things. It seemed so unfair
Yeah. It
to
seems like
me
you
that
really did try everything.
tried everything, and I felt really resentful of the world, and of other people around me. Like all my friends, my parents were going to festivals and going out for dinner. My friends were getting married, having kids, buying houses, whatever, and I was just like on disability benefits. I had to give up my ability to work, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was a nightmare. But what really got me in my darkest place was, I was just about keeping my head above water. I was living with my parents, so my bills weren't, big, and I was working part-time in a shop, and they knew my circumstances. And I was like, my parents would drop me to work, and I would bring my own food. Like it was just like this high maintenance situation, but I was just about keeping my head above water. And I loved the shop. I loved the clothes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I one of my best friends, she took her own life. And and then oh yeah, an important relationship of mine, I got together with this guy and had been really good friends with, that went bad. So a few different things kind of like all piled up all at the same time, just like, let's just say, like high emotional impact life events. And I was already at max capacity. I was clearly already at max capacity, and it tipped me over the edge. And all of my symptoms and my panic and my pain and everything got so much worse, to the point where I couldn't go into work anymore. And this was one of my biggest fears, was just like losing that last little bit of like life that I had. And so I remember I was just lying in bed. I text the owners. They're so sweet. Like we still adore each other. But I text them. I was like, I'm not coming back. And then I had to start this like grueling process of applying for disability benefits while I was like, just, it was really not the position that you think you imagine yourself in when you're in your early 30s. So I was really, that was when I tried the medication then as well, which I hadn't really done before, and that didn't work. They put me on like Xanax, Valium, sleeping tablets, amitriptyline, like all like long list, Prozac, all these things, and it just didn't work for me. It's like perfect if it works for someone else,
Yeah.
So it was really scary. It was like, I've tried everything, I've spoken to the best. I'm in a very privileged position that, I come from like a family who can afford healthcare, and I've been to all the best doctors in the world. And no one has any answers. Like, and here I am getting sicker and sicker after trying the hardest to get better. So I was really suicidal. I was waking up, before I even opened my eyes in the morning, I was already like crying hysterically. And it just seemed like, I don't know, like, do I live the rest of my life like this? Like, my parents are gonna die. Like, who's gonna look after me?
Yeah.
Like, it was just hell. So anyway, one of those days where I was lying in bed crying, a friend of mine sent me, my friends were, like, were always sending me things which could also be annoying, right? Because they're like, oh, you should do yoga, you should do this, you should take zinc. And you're like, oh my God, I've been doing everything. But she sent me this video on the mind-body connection. And I watched the video. It's just like a 5-minute talk on pain, really, like, it's really on pain science. But basically, this doctor, who I subsequently interviewed and is on my YouTube channel, Dr. Schubiner, he said that when your body, your nervous system is in a state of chronic stress, that it can manifest as all kinds of types of disease and illness and pain in your body. So, for instance, with my stomach, I had been trying for decades to change the food, the supplements, the probiotics, the digestive enzymes, and everything. But essentially, I realized in that moment that if I was in a constant state of stress, my stomach was like not working. It's not supposed to work when you're in a fight or flight. And so its whole pH balance was out. Like, so even no matter how much I spent on probiotics, I was putting them into an acidic environment where yeast was going to thrive. And so then I also realized that what he was saying is that, like, the pain center in your brain, like, all pain comes from your brain. He's saying, like, if you break your arm, the signals go to your brain, and your brain creates the pain. So he said, if you're in a chronic state of stress, and that part of your brain is chronically lit up. So I start having like the biggest aha moment of my life, right? Because I had been told my whole life I'm complicated, I'm a mystery, I have all these issues, I have this mental health, physical health, bladder issues, period pain, hormonal issues. I literally have just been told my whole life by every doctor and every healer and everyone that I'm complicated with like 1,000 issues. I'm listening to this dude talk. I'm like, the only problem I have is that I'm in a state of chronic stress. And if I can shift that, then my body can just go into, because I really love like biology. I've studied it before. So all this really made sense to me. And my body can go into its rest and digest.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then it can have a chance to heal itself from all these different symptoms and illnesses and diseases it's got going on. So that was the biggest breakthrough of my life, to be honest, because I just felt so free and relieved. I mean, I was still lying there in bed. Like, I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? But
Yeah.
first time in my life, he's just like, I realized there and then that I am in a chronic state of stress.
Yeah.
That's why everything is happening. And that's something that in that moment I said, I'm going to try and change. So I went all in, on this. And sure enough, things changed. Like within a couple of weeks, maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks, of applying this process. I walked into my local shop and I bought a packet of Mars ice creams and a 6-pack of Guinness.
Yeah.
Which food I hadn't eaten or touched. It was like, very scary food for me that would have caused a lot of problems. And I ate them. And then I went to a friend's house and I ate lasagna, and everyone was like, what? Like, we haven't seen you eat. What's going on? Is this for real? And it was really, really fun. And I had a complete breakthrough, after 30 years. But then it was a process, so.
Yeah, it's like shedding the old you. So like it's not just like you wake up the next day and then there's a new you. It's a continuous process that you need to kind of let go of, which couldn't have been easy either. Yeah.
100%, Sarah. Oh my God, that I love what you said. Like, so I had the evidence. Like, it was really fun. That was a very fun, like, dramatic miracle type of moment. But all it really was just evidence that this modality is 100% what I want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was a whole unpacking of my old self and all the patterns of behaviors and beliefs that I was living with that were generating a constant amount of stress in my body. So there's parts of myself I had to face, there's parts of myself I have to change, and there's rebuilding my life, rebuilding parts of me. So I love what you said. It's a completely ongoing process. But once you find and I just love really simple, easy to use tools and modalities. And once you kind of have that little package of, what works for you, then you can just keep applying it then for the rest of your life on health and relationships and all parts of your life. It's completely, it's a transformation.
Yeah. Amazing. Your story gave me goosebumps, because what a relief that you got to that stage. It's just, now my life, now I can live again. Now I can live, actually. You probably never lived properly until then, until now.
It's true. And particularly in those last few years where I was seeking healing, but I was really it's so unfortunate, so many of these healing kind of ways of thinking can end up sucking the joy out of you.
Yeah.
So even though I was doing all the right things, I was also I stopped going out drinking, which meant that I stopped socializing and stopped dancing and listening to music that I loved. And then all the health food stuff I stopped eating with other people. And so I didn't realize, I thought I was being such a good girl and such a good student of healing, and I didn't, it completely blindsided me that I was actually excluding myself from life so much. So it was a long journey back to getting back to work, which is what I help clients with mostly, is getting back to life, getting back to work.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like navigating the world again, all the while changing these old patterns and rebuilding new patterns.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that you have your own company now called Aoife Mind Body. And what I love about your when you go onto your website, it says helps women succeed in their lives and get back into the working world and find their own purpose, which is so empowering. Like it's nearly emotional when you read it, like because there's so many people obviously who are struggling and they don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Totally. And that's such a devastating position to be in. And then the side effect of doing this work of like you come with your symptoms, right? And that's where I was coming from too. I was like, I will take my life as it is, just take away this pain, right?
Hmm.
But I always say with mind body healing, you get more bang for your buck because the side effects are, well, first of all, your relationships improve, like with your partners, your husband, your kids, your family, your friends, right? Because you start to improve the relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
The other side effect is that because you start to strip away or see through many untruths that you were told about who you are and what you're capable of, and also because you start to shift your self-confidence and you become more connected to yourself and your soul, your purpose and your passions just can't help but come out of you. Um, and you just know yourself a lot better. Um, so yeah, that's such a beautiful part of it, is to just see women become more connected to their passions, and get back to jobs. Like a lot of clients who are already in their passion, like they love their job and they love their business, but it's not working so well because of their symptoms and their pain or depression, or so
Hmm.
it's just getting all that crap out of the way so you really can, yeah, thrive. And it's so important financially as well. Just with women, we it's just important that we are connected to ourselves and our soul purpose, and we feel like we can thrive and access the support we need to get there.
Yeah, totally. And if somebody was listening to this and they were going through a lot of pain that hasn't been able to be identified, just like you, what would you say to kind of guide them in the right direction? What, what questions could they ask themselves?
um well, usually I recommend people to go to my YouTube channel and to listen to the interviews with the doctors, also the testimonials and the past clients. Because for me, it was really a combination of like the doctors and the scientists who have some of that, or not some, but they have the kind of like scientific explanations to
Mm-hmm.
back it up, and that sort of confidence. But the other side was just listening to other people, because you're so isolated when you have these symptoms and you feel probably gaslit a lot by the medical system. You feel misunderstood, you feel unheard. You're like, either your partners and friends or your caretakers, or else you're having conflicted relationships with them because they don't understand you and you don't understand you, right? So the most comforting thing, I think, that and helpful thing is when you can start to just hear other people's stories and really relate to like where they were at, because then you can say, oh, this person is like me, like, okay. And you might also relate to some attributes, like, for instance, I was a real people pleaser and I didn't even know that was a thing. And I was a perfectionist. I didn't know I was. And I was a caretaker. Like, just when I started to hear other people say that they had these kind of like habits that were not taking care of themselves and taking care of other people. And I think that's where it just becomes very relatable
Yeah.
and you feel less alone. And then from there to just reach out to like talk to other people, to who are on this mind body journey, and start to like build yourself a bit of a community, ask questions, like reach out to me. Like there's so many other coaches teaching this as well, where you can just ask questions and listen to talks. I think that's the best way.
Yeah, peer support and just to be heard, really. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, where would they be able to find you?
Yeah, so I have a free health audit call where you can book in a free call with me. I'm on Instagram, and YouTube the best, and you can send me an email, or you can go on my website, read. Actually, my website has a lot of testimonials and educational videos, and you can book a call through the website, or you can reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram.
Yeah,
I do lots of like posts and fun things on Instagram as well, and you can DM me there and ask me questions, and we can chat.
perfect. I'll leave all of those information, all of those links in the show notes. Is there a kind of a community or a peer support network that people kind of connect on for this specific kind of chronic pain?
Hmm. I guess it's kind of called like the mind body community, but
Yeah.
you could end up anywhere really with the mind body connection, because it's like mind body soul. It's not like an exclusive word, but Dr. Howard Schubiner, Dr. Dave Clark, who I interview on my YouTube channel, they have incredible books.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Dr. Dave Clark wrote a book in the 80s about this, and Dr. Schubiner has like an incredible Unlearn Your Pain book.
Yeah.
And there is, yeah, I'm not sure. Like, there's probably like Facebook groups. I used to have a Facebook group. I know a bunch of other coaches that have like Facebook groups and stuff like that. But yeah, you just want to make sure you're going in the right place, because you can end up, yeah, in when you want to connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can end up getting more overwhelmed with other people's problems and stuff in these communities sometimes. So I recommend.
That's an important thing to take into account, actually. You know, reading other people's problems and pain and struggles can be a bit overwhelming. So, you know, start small and keep it simple, like you said.
I think so too. And it's just so comforting. Like, you don't need like a whole group of people like talking about stuff. You can get quite overwhelmed, but quite comforting just to hear,
Mm-hmm.
oh wow, she's been through my experience, you know, or to read the doctor's books that are really great as well.
Yeah. And what's your daily tip, your daily hack that kind of keeps you on the in your zone?
There's so many tools. Like I probably have about like 3 or 4 tools that I'm just using all of the time. But there's one thing that is quite fun that I get my clients to do, and I do when I remember. And it's called playing the slow motion game.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the way there's a lot of talk about being in the present moment, and you know, with my work, it's like regulating the nervous system and everything. So if you actually notice throughout your day, or stop yourself throughout your day and do something in slow motion, like just reaching for your glass, like you just do slow motion, like as if you're, you know,
Yeah.
it can be a really great tool to like use your body to trick your brain into like slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am a real like, I'll rush around and get like busy and keep, and like I can be very activated then a lot of the time, you know, like, so even if you're someone, and I get clients that say to me then, but I do things slow because I'm a rusher, and they say I'm not a rusher, I do things slow anyway. Well, for those people, I say you got to slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
Because I bet you if you are slow, if you just slow down, like I mean into like ridiculous slow motion, like you can do walking down the street and have a real laugh.
Yeah.
But it will, because you have to focus so much. It
Yeah.
will like snap your brain into like what, you know, the present moment or whatever. So that's just a fun little tool. Yeah.
I'll give that a try. See how that goes down when I'm going to the shop in it later.
You might get some funny looks.
Yeah, that's it. That sounds very clever, actually, because, we can trick our brain into believing what we want it to do. I don't know if you've ever heard that. I'm sure you have seen that video, Fake It Till You Make It, where she kind of stands up and then she builds her confidence and things like that through her body language. It's like a body mind trick.
Totally. And actually the body language, like when you've been felt so helpless and scared and
Yeah.
so beat down by the world, like, and maybe you also have, these different habits of, like, I had being self-effacing and very like Irish woman, put myself down. So doing some sort of like postural changes can help you to feel a bit more assertive, but in that you will make your nervous system regulate a little bit more. It will feel a bit safer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really empowering. Oh, thank you so much, Aoife. That's all so empowering and really helpful for people who are suffering out there with pain. And is there anything else any other tips or any advice you'd like to give anyone?
Don't give up. Keep going. Like, go for the mind-body connection. Find tools that work for you. If the first thing you try doesn't work, don't give up. And it's so worth it, like when I was sick for so long, I could easily be like, wow, I lost 30 years of my life. I still had a life, but if I only knew this before. But when you start to get your life back, nothing else matters. You just start to get your relationships back. It doesn't, all of that crap from the past just kind of melts away, and you don't care about it anymore, and you just are so happy to be doing life again.
Yeah, I think that's actually important to not dwell on what we've lost, because there's so much more gained. We can get hard on ourselves and why didn't I do that before now? I've wasted so much of my life, but that isn't helping our central nervous system or at all. In fact, it's probably making it worse. So yeah, to focus on the future and what we have now, and yes, the new life that people have. Yeah. Thank you so much, Eva. You've been amazing. I'm so proud of you as well. You're very inspirational. Ugh, I can't speak today. You're very inspirational for all the people out there who are suffering.
Thanks, Sarah. Muchísimas gracias, chica. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye. Thank you so much, everyone, for opening your ears to this episode today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. There's so much learning, and as I said, I'll put all of the links in the show notes to Aoife's Instagram, her Facebook, her website, and the resources that she mentioned. If it's something that you yourself don't need help with, I'm sure there might be somebody you know who is struggling to find a diagnosis or is suffering in pain. It doesn't have to be debilitating pain, but a pain, some sort of discomfort or anything this might be of help for. So I highly recommend reaching out to Aoife. She's such a lovely soul and has a huge heart and an amazing presence. And yeah, you can book in a consultation with her through the links in the show notes. I wish you all a wonderful week, and remember, you can always reach out to me as well with any questions or queries, and I absolutely adore your comments. Please feel free to share and rate this podcast so that other people can find it and maybe find it useful as well. Thank you so much with all my heart.